What is up, everyone? I'm Skratch. Welcome to the channel. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we have Ash on the channel. What's up, buddy? How is it going?
Skratch, what's up, man? It's going great. How about you?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Doing pretty good, actually. Looking forward to talk a bit about champions and how to get them on steroids and do crazy damage with them. Because recently I've had a lot of people asking me, Skratch, is this build good enough for this champion? How should I build this champion? Should I prioritize more attack? Should I prioritize more speed? And basically that's what we're going to cover in today's video, guys. How to get more damage, double your damage, triple your damage, or who knows, maybe even quadruple it if you're lucky enough. But basically, what are the main principles of how you should build your champions to do more damage? What should be your main priority? And we're not necessarily going to focus only on arena. It's mainly kind of like a all-around type of video. And before we dive into it, make sure you guys head over and check out Ash's channel. We actually did a different collab there, and I think you're really going to enjoy that video. So definitely go and see the most OP champions of all time, right?
Ever released.
Exactly. So,
fun.
Ash,
Yo.
when you are building a champion, and I'm not necessarily going to talk about a specific name, just mainly damage dealers, right? We have HP, defense, attack. This is pretty standard. Everybody knows an HP-based champion needs HP to deal damage, an attack needs attack, a defense needs defense, right? So it's pretty straightforward. But when you are building them now for today's game, right? Today's meta, and I'm not necessarily talking about arena meta like Hydra, Chimera, Clan Boss, Dungeons, etc. Why is kind of like the main thing that you're looking to get out of that champion? Like, what are you trying to prioritize on the champion first? You know, like,
Yeah, man.
in terms
Yeah,
of
I mean,
gear.
well, unless they have like an extra crit chance, 100% crit rate is going to be
Yeah.
standard, right? So that's a old school basic advice that it still applies today. But beyond that, I think that the first thing you should do is evaluate what you're trying to get out of that, what the champion is doing, right? Do you need any other stats? First of all, look to see if there's two sources of damage, right? Like a He-Man, for example. He has HP and he has attack. Understand and know where the damage is coming from and what else you need on that champion. Do you need accuracy mainly, right? Because those are the trickiest champions to build. Like Marius is the most powerful champion in the game, but he's also one of the trickiest to build because you want everything, you know, to some extent. So think about what stats you need. And if you don't need accuracy, your job gets a little bit easier, right? And then the next spot that I like to kind of a check mark on my list, right, is I start thinking about the boots. And I start thinking about, is this a champion, a damage dealer, if it's a defensive-based damage dealer, that I could get away putting defense percentage on my boots or attack percentage on my boots? And the number one indicator of that, right, is do you have a champion that might be attacking a lot out of turn, right, where speed isn't as imperative, like a Dark Elhain or like a Geralt Broadmaul, right, or whatever, or like an Allele, someone with a mechanic that gives them a lot of turn meter fill associated with getting a buff or something like that, right? So there's actually more of these champions than you think in the game. Or a champion like Toshiro that's going to be ally attacking with a Mikage on the A1 and the A3, right? Maybe you can afford to build them a little bit slower than you normally would and try to get away with the percentage stats on the boots. Otherwise, I go speed in most cases, but it depends a little bit on where you are in the game too. I'll pause for a moment there, but that's kind of what I start with.
Yeah, definitely. And Toshiro is a good example because I was actually talking with somebody in my Discord the other day about how to build Toshiro, and he was sharing his build, right? So Toshiro already gains stir meter, Ninja gains stir meter, so that let's talk about Ninja as a better example. Actually, more people have him, right? So Ninja already gains stir meter with the A1, right? Which means that you don't necessarily need to go super crazy on the speed, and you can basically try and maximize the attack that you can get on the champion and build him slightly slower. Now, it might not be the best example that I have on the screen because he's not fully built, but let me just quickly give him the gear so you guys can kind of like get a better grasp of what I'm talking about. I feel like it's really important to try and basically look at the speed and think, okay, I want to use him in the Chimera, I want to use him in the Hydra, I want to use him in the dungeons. I don't need to go 250 plus speed because, one, I'm going to get turn meter. That will allow him to rotate faster. And that instantly puts you in the situation where, like, you know what? I'm going to go with attack boots because that's what's going to give me more damage. So it's super important to try and get the attack boots, get the attack chest piece, get the crit damage gloves, you know, then try to look for a lot of crit rate, crit damage, preferably a lot of crit rate on the shield, for example. On the shield, you cannot get attack percentage, right? So instead, if you want to get even more attack, you should look on the helmet and the weapon to be attack percentage as well, next to that crit rate and crit damage. But of course, the dominant part is going to be like, where can I get more crit rate from? chest, boots, shield. Those are the main parts, and gloves, right? Then the other parts, attack, crit damage, because not every single piece will drop you the same substat, So I feel like paying attention to that is going to be really, really important, and picking the right gear sets. I mean, what's the most OP gear set for a damage dealer today, Ash, in your opinion?
Well, I think that Merciless is the most OP gear set for a damage dealer. Because it's not just the damage that you get with the extra attack and crit damage, but also the decreasing skills cooldown is so huge. It's hard to pull off, but if you can get a 9-piece, if you can ever work towards that, putting like a Rhodos or somebody in a 9-piece Merciless is absolutely bonkers. Now, granted, in every area of the game and in every situation, there's going to be different, needs to consider, right? The arena, you might need that stone skin, you might need the feral. It just depends. It's situational on how the champion does your damage dealer have some sort of a fail-safe mechanic, right? Like an unkillable, like a Leo or a Siegfried, right? Like that gives you more options, right? But you have to think of, how can I keep him alive? And once that's checked off, I would go Merciless in situations. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely think Merciless is the best, and not only for attack damage dealers. Like, for example, I'm running Alice in the Chimera, right? I have him built on a Merciless. I would love to have him on a 9-piece Merciless. That would be even crazy. Even though I'm getting attack from it, which is not really going to benefit the champion at all, right? But the 35% ignore defense is just massive comparing it with 25%, right? So I feel like it's definitely the best set, and it comes from the Curse City. Truth be told, I'm getting mainly 5-star gear from there, but it's still better than having to go and farm dungeons, going to have and buy the gear, and it's a very, very strong set. So this should be the main priority in terms of what set should I equip on my damage dealer. Do I have Merciless? No. Do I have Savage? Do I have Lethal? So then you go down to Cruel, and you're going to different sets that ignore defense and stuff like that. But yeah, Merciless is definitely the best way to go for. And when you're ascending your gear, for example, right? We all know how important that is nowadays. Are you trying to get mainly crit damage on your gloves, or you're trying to get some different stat on it? Like
yeah, this
attack,
is interesting.
defense, HP.
Yeah, it's a good question, man. I personally still go. I 90% of situations, I still look for crit damage with crit damage Ascension on my gauntlets. But it's very interesting. I tried a build because, like, once you do that strategy on all your nukers on your entire account, one day I would kind of ask myself, I'm like, why don't I just try crit rate on my gauntlets, which seems like a newbie thing to do. Like, what are you building, Kale? But then actually just prioritize crit damage everywhere else, substats, like the inverse of what you normally do. And the build was actually very comparable to what it would look like end of the day. And it's gear that I previously maybe had overlooked because it wouldn't have that crit rate, right? So like, I think there's multiple ways, but I think the most traditional way for me personally is going for crit damage on the gauntlets, attack percentage on the chest if they're attack based, or defense, and just trying to min-max those crucial stats to escalate their damage. What about you?
Yeah, so personally, I'm trying to get the crit damage as well. I tend to get pretty unlucky with most of my rerolls on the Ascension. So if I'm not getting the crit damage and I'm already like 5, 6, 10 tries, if it comes attack and that's what the champion does, I'm gonna keep that one, and I give up. I'm like, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it can get pretty annoying
with the chaos dust that eventually you ask yourself, like, dude, this is good enough, on some gear, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I have some pieces, bro, like 20 retries, 25, 30 retries, and I'm like, oh my god, and I still don't have the right thing on them,
You
and
almost start to rage retry. Like, you ever farm Sand Devil or Shogun for that matter, like overnight or something? You're like, wow, I've got like 80 dust. This is great. And
it's gone like that. You snap your fingers and it's gone. Yeah, definitely. That's pretty annoying, actually. And it's so hard to get it, right? I feel like the Ascension, next to the gear and the way you're prioritizing the stats, guys, I feel like the Ascension is the next big thing, right? Like, in my opinion, the Ascension is bigger than a Blessing. Because while a Blessing is great, right? Like, it gives you tons of extra stats and all that. But if you're getting... for example, I have Narcissus on my screen. If I'm getting HP percentage on the boots, HP percentage on the chest, that's already 40%. Then if I'm getting crit damage on the gloves, 20% more crit damage. Then I'm getting the HP at the top on the other pieces. Then I'm going down at the bottom and I'm getting the ring, I'm getting the banner, I'm getting the amulet, more crit damage. It's going to even out in terms of how much crit damage you're going to get, more or less. It's kind of like slightly less crit damage from ascending than from the blessing, but the rest of the stats overall are much, much better. So burning a lot of energy in the Sand Devil and Shogun is not something I would recommend for kind of like early mid-game players. You know, I feel like there's so much else to do. But once you're kind of like past the progression stage, I feel like this should be one of the main priorities for every single account next to farming gear and stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's a good point, man, because when you look at Ascension, if you take Ascension, affinity bonuses, classic arena, faction guardians, empowerment, blessings, relics, area bonuses, I guess what my point here is that you can get way more stats from all of these things than you can from just artifacts at this point, which is crazy to say.
It's mental, actually. Yeah, it's literally mental. Yeah.
And this is more end game applicable, obviously. But like when you look at a characters that you have empowered or a blessing for, a good blessing, and you look at their actual stats and you look at all those columns to see where you're getting those bonus stats, it really does show you. And then if you add other things like to how to accentuate your artifacts, like again, Ascension or even glyphs for that matter, we're going to get legendary glyphs and epic glyphs and stuff now too in the game. You just think about how your artifacts are almost like your foundation. But there's so much to build, you know, whether a nuker or a support champion, there's so much to build now in this game from that foundation.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely.
Back in the day, bro, it was like your Great Hall and your
and that's about it, you know? Yeah, Great Hall and Mastery is like, that's the only thing that deals damage. What do you think about, because, yeah, we kind of like talked a bit about Savage and all the other sets. We still have a lot of champions, right, that don't necessarily need to have high attack, high HP, high defense, enemy max HP champions, for example, right? What do you prefer to take on those ones? Do you go for Relentless? Do you go for Reflex? What's kind of like your main approach, like on a Husk, for example, right?
Yeah. Good question. Let me see how I might have a Husk built right now. I think that oftentimes what I do, I'm sure you're the same way. I love PvP in this game. So especially more recently, like been grinding hard.
Yeah.
So I guess my philosophy on my account, and this is going to depend on your play style. If you're in your progression mode, you're certainly gonna have a different philosophy than I do. But like I have my live arena roster built with all my best gear, you know?
Yeah, correct.
And I will mule those sets around if I like need to put it on a Toshiro to do a Chimera or whatever it may be, you know? But for the most part, I have like all my S tier, my godlike gear on the live arena champion. So on a champion like Husk, I have them built in triple crit damage, you know, because it's fine, you know. But anyway, to the actual point or the spirit of your question, I kind of get by with whatever I have lying around for the most part, unless I'm trying to min max that one specific area for like a Chimera Clash or a Hydra Clash. But yeah, I generally go if their kit has, if I want to get cooldowns down on a champion and they do damage, I'd like the idea of trying to go, this is like end game, but trying to go 4-piece merciless, 4-piece reflex.
Yeah.
To try to get those cooldowns way down, right?
Yeah.
Same idea though with a relentless or a reflex. Obviously, with a relentless, you might be stripping away your buffs. With a reflex, you're not going to get the extra turn, the cooldown on every skill, right? So there's a little bit of a trade-off depending on your team composition. So these are things to factor in. There's no right or wrong answer. But I think that, you know, sometimes I still go, like in Cursed City or whatever, I'll just still go with just a random, like, you know, Savage and Cruel or something like that on my nuker. It just depends. You know, what about you?
Yeah, definitely agree. So I think personally, like if we're talking about progression-wise, early game, mid-game, while you're still kind of like struggling a bit to score as much damage in the Hydra and all the other areas, I feel like Relentless works really, really well when you're in that area of the game. Once you're past that stage, I feel like, yeah, Reflex becomes way more important. Like if you're super endgame, and I'm not necessarily talking about Husk as super endgame guys, like Crisia or other champions, probably you guys know it, but once you're trying to push in a lot of damage on the Hydra, you don't want to get a lot of turns in there anymore, right? Because that's kind of like going to stop you from dealing as much damage because you're constantly reaching that turn limit much faster, right? Unlike the Chimera, which is kind of like the opposite. But I feel like reflex is slowly losing value towards end game, but it's great early game because of the extra turn, can give you a clutch. Maybe you're going to be able to provoke straight after it, or maybe you're going to be able to do something that's really, really impactful early on, with a relentless.
Yeah, definitely, man. And like Zeal and Cruel are very good too, still on Cruel, and Zeal is hard to get, but very good. Even on enemy max, or every champion is different, right? Like that's the thing in this game. That's the kind of the beauty of Raid in a way, right? Is that like on a more to Macabre, you can go all out Stone Skin the slow build because you're already ignoring 100% defense, with the peril ability. Same thing on other ignore 100% defense champions. So you really got to look at every champion a little bit independently and then just think a little bit about their kits, right? Like if you have a nuker with only one active ability, maybe Reflex does make more sense than I can't think of any nukers with one active ability, but maybe it makes more sense than a Relentless, But yeah, I think that generally speaking, it's just really it's a crappy answer, but it really just gonna depend a bit on the champion,
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing that a lot of people are basically, in a way, not overlooking, but they're overdoing, in my opinion, going on a champion like Ninja, right? Let's just say you want to use him for Hydra, Chimera, and stuff. A lot of people will go crazy on accuracy, right? And then they'll have very low attack, and then they'll be like, why is my champion not doing enough damage? Especially mythical champions, which already ignore 20% of the resistance, which makes it much easier for us to build them in terms of that. So how often are you kind of like going for accuracy banners on your nukers, and how often are you going for attack nukers? Like let's just say you need an average accuracy of around 300, right, to make them work. You tend to go mainly with accuracy banners in that situation, or you're relying on the blessing, maybe you're relying on having your great hall sorted, which we're gonna get to in just a second, But what's kind of like your main pick there?
Early game to mid game, I want to make sure I'm nailing the accuracy.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm not skimping on accuracy. I want to make sure that more than min-maxing your damage, you want to make sure you're landing all the debuffs you're supposed to land. So yeah, you're going to go for accuracy banner all the time. Like I cringe when I see not cringe, that's really too mean-spirited, but like I see some new players like putting on an attack banner or whatever on like a Kale or something, but like you need to land the poisons, man. You need to get the full capabilities of what the champions have to offer. Also, I feel like newer players, and I did this too, but like you can undervalue champions because you're not landing the debuffs properly, right? So yeah, go accuracy in the banner. As you get to the end game, though, in PvE, in dungeons and Chimera everywhere, between OP accuracy auras everywhere, Mikage and beyond, and increased accuracy buffs becoming more prevalent in the game, being that the threshold in most areas of the game is 300, 350, maybe 400 accuracy, and given that there's ascensions and relics and so many things added to the game, I'm always going to go with a damage banner unless I'm just really struggling for whatever reason to achieve a build, and I just need it, for whatever reason. But most of the time, I'm really going to try to escalate that damage from my banner. I guess the one caveat might be is if I have to sacrifice a ton of speed. Like if I have an accuracy banner with like 30 speed, but my best attack banner is only 15, maybe I'd go with the accuracy in that case.
Yeah, I'm totally on the same page with it. Like if I'm struggling with the substats, if I'm not able to get accuracy, then I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna go with the accuracy banner. I'm gonna glyph that one. I'm gonna try to ascend it to attack or defense or HP if I can, to kind of like make up a bit for that difference. Or if I'm kind of like fine on the substats, I'm gonna go the other way around. Like I'm gonna go, okay, this is a defense-based nuker. I'm gonna give him a defense banner, and I'm gonna try to ascend that to accuracy. That's gonna give me 29 more. Then we have the Great Hall, and I wanna just quickly take your take on this matter. Early game. What's the main thing people should prioritize as the very first thing in the affinity bonuses Great Hall?
Oh, for me, it's still accuracy, man.
Still accuracy. I just wanted to check that you're still on the same page with me, because sometimes I'm seeing Reddit posts and everybody's like, no, do crit damage. You want to do crit damage so your champions do more damage, but then you're suffering from accuracy, you're suffering from the resistance and all the other stats. So new players, mid-game, progressing to the game, make sure you guys max your accuracy as the very first thing in the Great Hall. then move on to something else. Even resistance, in my opinion, is the second best thing to do, because the accuracy and resistance 80 flat directly is almost like the equivalent of a banner, while you're doing 20% attack, 25% crit damage, is giving you such a low return compared to the resistance and accuracy. But that's kind of like my take on the...
I agree. I prioritize accuracy. After that, I would say, like, you know, resistance, crit damage, HP. I think that you can make a case for all of those. I think that we'd probably agree that, like, no matter what, attack would probably be last, right? Like, because it only benefits.
That's how I've done mine as well.
Yeah. What about on the area bonuses though? Where would you put ignore defense up against accuracy on the area, Great Hall?
So in the area bonuses, kind of like my number one rule here for my account is always do the ignore defense first on whatever content that I'm struggling with. So even if I'm not struggling with and I just want to up my damage, ignore defense is the main priority for me on everything. Like, I have it on the Curse City, I have it on the Sand Devils. That's the only thing that I have, right? I started it on the Shogun, but then they nerfed it, so I was like, yeah, I don't need it. I'm not gonna bother to do it anymore because the dungeon is much easier now. But I always start with that because that gives you the best return in terms of damage. And I feel like that's one of the main things that people are trying to achieve. Double the damage, get more damage, right? So the ignore defense is the main thing. Then I am doing speed. That's kind of like my rule for it. And then I might not be doing crit damage. I might be going for the actual accuracy because for Hydra, for example, that's what I've done. That enabled me to basically don't focus as much on an accuracy banner, but instead go and get an attack banner. Don't focus so much on accuracy substats, focus on crit damage substats, you know? So that overall added up more value to my build than just go and get straight 30% crit damage from here, you know, and then struggle with the accuracy, struggle with the others, you know. But that's...
You know what annoys the hell out of me, man, on the area bonuses? First of all, I go speed before ignore defense, but you're making me second think that, because 20% ignore defense is insane.
Comparing it to 20 speed, which is basically 3 glyphs or 4 glyphs, you know, is a massive difference.
Either way, I have it. Like, I was gonna say speed, ignore defense, accuracy in that order is my priorities, but maybe you're right. I'm flip-flopping. But dude, does it annoy like just the absolute hell out of you that you can't down convert medals or whatever they're called, the crests?
In the way of the cost, you mean?
Yeah, like, for example, let's just say I want to invest in Sand Devil, which I don't have any investment in at all.
Yeah.
I could upgrade, but it only costs 100 gold. I only have gold crests, but the conversion rate's not there. Like, it should be less, you know, to get to level 1.
So basically, yeah, I was the same until they explained it. So when you're going to Classic Arena, basically you're gonna change the amount. You're not going to change the amount of medals that you're earning, only by a little bit, right? So when you're climbing there, it makes sense that the conversion is for the regular Great Hall. But when you are in Live Arena, you're basically getting pretty much the same currency, just with a different color, and pretty much the same amount. So that's why we don't have the conversion for this one. Maybe I explained it like crap, to be honest.
You're basically saying that, like, okay, it's just working as intended. It's supposed to be expensive, but you're just given a discount when you're climbing. Is that
exactly something like that?
Okay.
Yeah, because you're basically not losing when you're in a higher tier to basically like, oh my god, I'm earning so much gold ones, and the bronze one I was only earning this much, you know, because
I understand. Yeah, I guess
I know I'm explaining it like crap, to be honest.
To level 1, it's supposed to cost 25. Yeah, whatever. I mean, maybe I'm just missing it. Maybe I think I understand, but anyway,
I still don't know how to explain it because I can't really remember exactly how they explained it to me. But it made sense because of what I've heard back then, guys. Okay, I might cover this another time because I really forgot exactly the whole thing. What I don't like about this is just basically the tiers, and the craziest thing to me is Demon Lord in Grade T, like 3. Demon Lord should be in Grade 1, like that's the thing that everybody's kind of like looking to progress the most, you know. So I feel like
man,
I'm a bit gutted with that.
And like I heard that they're officially not going to add Chimera to this, and like I don't know if it's an unpopular or popular opinion, but I'm like so bummed out about that, man.
No, they will add it. They just said not straight away. So probably we're gonna see it in like.
Staff told me they said they're not gonna add it.
No, I think in like
not to throw them under the bus. But...
I think in like up to half a year or so. I think we're going to
Oh,
have
okay.
it.
Anytime soon. Okay, good. Then I'm going to continue hoarding my crests.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. So I had like 23k medals, right, or crests, and then they've announced Faction Wars hard mode, and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go and dump everything in Faction Wars hard mode grade 1. I've maxed everything there with what I had.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I'm still stockpiling just in case. I don't know.
They already confirmed that it's gonna work, So
I saw your Faction War video, and I saw all the comments were like, "Skratch."
Yeah. I was like, chill, guys, because they've confirmed it. Like,
they've confirmed.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
But so, you don't know. You never know. But I think that it would be a ballsy move to be like, yes, 100%, not going to do it, and they do it.
Yeah, I think like when they released Faction Wars, like was the toughest content in the game, right? Like, do you remember how hard it was if you were playing at that time? I think it was around the same time with Foley Fusion, more or less.
Yeah,
right?
I was like right after they added. Yeah. I joined during the Foley Fusion. I didn't get it, but that's when I started.
So it was super hard, right? And I feel like Faction Wars hard mode will become the hardest content in the game, in my opinion. So that's why I've done it.
Yeah, man. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the final thought on nukers is like this is obvious stuff here, but on my two things that I did kind of stemming from the points that we mentioned on my Chimera team, right? And it was with Toshiro, but it could apply to anybody, right?
Yeah.
Is I had at least one of the top Chimera damage dealers that I know in DeGreer. He uses the same team that I do. And he was pulling out like, I don't know, 40%, 50% more damage than I did. I'm like, dude, what is going on here? Because my builds are pretty busted. I felt like they were great, some of my best gear. And he's like, dude, your Toshiro is way too fast. Like, slow him way down.
Yeah, and not enough attack and stuff, huh?
And change your, I forgot exactly what I was running, but he's like, you need a 9-piece Feral set on your team, bro. Like, you need it.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm like, I'm aware of how good Feral is and whatever, right? But but I made the uncomfortable switch because I had to sacrifice a lot of stats to pull off the 9-piece Feral, right? And I switched and I slowed my Toshiro way down and I just min-maxed all his attack. And that's my numbers went way higher. Like, I probably bumped like 30% extra damage onto my team just from a Feral set and a slower nuker, with more nuking stats. So I think that sometimes it's not going to be one size fits all advice here, but it just goes to show the power of a Feral in protection, if you're able to achieve those 9 pieces, what that can do, let alone some of these busted relics out there as well. Like, it's really changing the game in terms of what's possible. Like the Aetheri Coronet, whereas damage increases by 1% each time they place a debuff, up to 30%. It's busted, So there's a lot of other mechanisms and combinations and gear sets and relics that can really go into min-maxing your damage.
Absolutely. Like, I feel like they're just so important now. Relics, blessings as well. The gear sets on your support champions, as you mentioned, protection, Feral is massive. And that kind of like the thing with Toshiro that you were saying is exactly the same thing that I was actually advising somebody in my Discord the other day. Like, slow down your Toshiro from like 260 speed. You don't need him so fast, even for Chimera Nightmare, Put Mikage in the team because he's going to do more attacks. He's going to gain more turn meter as well. Focus on more attack, lower the accuracy from 430 because you don't need so much. You already ignore 20% of the enemy's resistance anyway with the mythical champion as an example, right? So lower that down. Like my Alice for Ultra Nightmare, I only have like 320 accuracy. He never gets resisted, because I've prioritized getting the damage stats instead, So I feel like all of these little things are super important in order to enhance your damage, guys.
I have one question for you. I know you're signing off, but I have one question for you. This is one thing that I'm still not 100% certain of, and that is if you're lucky enough to get a 6-star blessing on your damage dealer and you don't want to go polymorph, what are you going with on a 6-star specifically? What are you going with?
So it kind of depends which one of the champions. Sometimes I might go with Soul Rip. Soul Rip can be really nice. Amaria's Cruelty can be really nice as well. Lightning Cage can be really good for some of them, because that gives you a chance to basically don't have your buffs stripped. Some of them, Intimidating Presence, if they have a speed aura, or if I feel like I need that speed aura in the team. This is basically what I'm mainly picking. And Crushing Rend is kind of like a no-brainer for a lot of the PvE content. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you would choose like Crushing Rend in, I don't know. Let's go with a Trunda, for example, right? Would you just go Crushing Rend auto?
No, on Trunda actually is much better to get Nature's Wrath, but only if you have your Great Hall maxed on ignore defense. So you get Nature's Wrath, that gives you 30% more defense. You already have a Merciless set on her, which ignores 35% defense. Then you get the Mastery that ignores 25% defense. You have the Great Hall that ignores 20% defense. Then you have the skill, the A2, that's the craziest skill on her that already ignores with the second hit 50% of the target's defense. So you're already overboard with ignoring the defense. So in terms of a blessing for her, Nature's Wrath will basically just stop up more damage than a Crushing Rend. And if we're talking about a blessing, Ireti Coronet will go over the cat's gaze, because that's even more damage, you know.
See, I'm glad I asked, right? This is good.
Yeah.
This is good stuff. And you're right. Like there are so many different options just depending on who the heck you're playing, right? I guess there is really no one size fits all on this.
No,
stuff,
it's nice. Just kind of like you really need to decide on okay, I'm gonna use this champion mainly for this.
Would you ever go Crushing Rend on a? Is there ever a situation that you would go Crushing Rend 6-star in the arena on any champion?
I feel like he's not paying off. I have it on my Calamitous. Not Calamitous, sorry, Carnage. I'm constantly butchering their name for whatever reason. But that's mainly because I use him in PvE and I was doing a showcase and I just did not want to pay the gems for him to change it. But I wouldn't use Crushing Rend in PvPs. Only like 5-6% ignore defense. It can be pretty good, don't get me wrong, because it can be impactful. But I feel like a Soul Rip, for example, can give you so much more out of it, you know.
I'm the same way. I don't use it on any of my champions, but I do see it from time to time, you know.
Yeah, Haven Cast is pretty good as well on champions that will gain a lot of buffs as well, you know, even for PvP as well, you know.
Yeah,
I forgot to mention that one. Yeah.
Good call, man.
Sweet, man. So that was pretty much all for the video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. Hopefully you got a couple of tips from here. I know we haven't really necessarily stayed to handpick every single stat, do it like this, make sure you have 5 attack there, 10% speed on the other, but it's kind of like a general guide, kind of like get into our mind on how we are building champions. Ash, was a pleasure to have you on the channel, brother.
Always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Thank you. And as usual, guys, appreciate all of you guys watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.